I mean, I take it back. It's Mati who did it. Mati, who always said, no, no, no. And then he said, yes, go ahead, buy an apartment. And that's what did it. That's what made, we're actually going to move. It's the first family that moved.
The closet is ready.
And Mickey and Susie say, well, at one point they went to Daddy and Mommy and they said, listen, we too are moving. And Daddy said, okay, we're selling the business. So maybe it was Mickey and Susie. But the central event which made it happen, which was a cornerstone, a fulcrum, did you say, Mickey? A fulcrum, which made it move, was the event 30 years ago, exactly 30 years ago, at our wedding when everybody came to Israel, and on Pesach we had Sheva Brachot and so on. And that is what brought everybody to see that this was the place and this is where it's going to be. Right. That's not the speech. Now I begin the speech. The speech has to be about science because it's the only thing I'm allowed to talk about, and then sound. So, I'm going to start with evolution because there's a real puzzle in the study of evolution. There's a machlokes. Everybody knows that man evolved from the ape by the Darwinian process of natural selection. But what was the first change in the monkey? What was the first thing that happened that allowed it to evolve into becoming a man? What was that first spark of the divine plan which allowed a superior being to come out, a true Tselem Elokim? What big change occurred in this first mutation that is referred to in Bereshit as Vayipach Ba'apav Nishmat Chayim? The answer given, the current theory of evolution, says that the first crucial step was the grandmother. That is what made the whole difference. Yes, it's true we needed language. That's one thing that divides us. We need an opposing thumb. That makes a difference. But in order to develop a complex culture, we needed a way of transmitting that culture not only from one generation to the next, but also from one generation to the one following the next. Humankind is defined by its teaching not only its children, but also its grandchildren. Humankind is defined by learning not only from its parents, but also from its grandparents. Kol ha-lomed Torah ben beno ki'ilu kivla miSinai. The tradition, the carrying on of tradition can only happen with grandparents. And it's really the grandmother, I'm sorry, but that's what they say. Well, it's biological reasons. We won't get into it. Now, after all, our culture is very complex. Grandpa says that it all boils down to hakarat tov and maser. But even Grandpa doesn't really believe that these two words don't need elaboration. When Hillel told the prospective convert, "Da'alech sani lechavercha lo tavid," zuhi klal gadol, zuhi kol haTorah kula, he immediately added, "V'idach perushahu zil gemor." Don't stop with this. Go and learn the rest. You can't just stop with that. Learning cannot be completed on one foot. The principle can be stated in one phrase, but the understanding and application takes a lifetime of effort. To transmit the complex tradition, we need not only mothers, but grandmothers too. I'd like to share with you a thought which our friend Sandy brought up at the Seder. We discussed it till 2:30 in the morning, and I think we should end a bit earlier though tonight. I'll try to be brief. He noted that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to Moshe, and Moshe to Bnei Israel, they tell of Makat Bechorot, which is about to happen. And they tell him also about the mitzvah Korban Pesach. And then suddenly in the middle, without any warning, they jump to Pesach L'Dorot. First in the tzivui of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe, and then Moshe to Bnei Israel, he says, do this, mushchu k'chu, and then all of a sudden, in following generations you have to continue and do the same thing. And then in that discussion of the Pesach L'Dorot, they say, Ki yonu lelechem b'neichem ma avodah hazot lachem. They haven't even left Mitzrayim yet. And they're supposed to start worrying what they're going to do in Eretz Canaan when they get there 40 years hence. Grandma gave me a present of Agada last week, and I found it in an interpretation that Bnei Israel made a bracha, Hatova Meitiv, when they heard this from Moshe. They had never before been sure whether there would be another generation. Slaves are never very sure what's going to happen. Maybe they'll be moved from place to place and so on. This concern with Pesach Dorot gave them the necessary hope, faith, trust to defy the Egyptians, prepare Korban Pesach, put the blood on the mashkot and mezuzot. This gave them hope, faith, and trust. It works the other way too. It is something we learn from our parents and grandparents. Many people have talked this evening about Grandma's life and the series of transitions in it, back and forth between London and Antwerp, then Amsterdam, Rio, New York, and suddenly they decide to move to Israel. And Daddy stops going to the office, as he had been doing for 40 years, and he stays home every day. That's quite a change. And Grandma takes it all in stride as if it was quite natural. So you live here, and you live there, and you live all the same. Whenever someone asks Grandma, what will we do if, she says, we'll cross the bridge when we get to it. No problem. It's this calm and dealing with things naturally which we can all learn from and gain a sense of trust in the future with all the changes that we bring about in our lives. The leap of faith, the jump of Nachshon into the Red Sea, depend on grandmothers. I just want to remind, Pesach has the children as the center because they are naturally in the position of transition. It's transition that counts, it's movement, it's change, that's what counts. And that change can only take about by looking at grandmothers and seeing how they took those changes and took them in stride. I began by talking of the need for grandmothers to transmit complex culture to following generations. Well, we are continuing to evolve, culturally at least, and our traditions become more and more heavy. Each generation seems to spend more years in school before getting to work. It seems to some of us that they also spend more years building themselves before building a family. This is because life and culture really is more complex. We learn from history, and history gets longer and longer. We learn from foreign cultures, and modern communication technology allows contact with cultures that are further and further away. We develop and build on our own traditions, and we have to learn not only Tanaim and Amoraim, but also Rishonim and Achronim. For transmission of this developing and growing body of culture, we need not only grandmothers, but great-grandmothers too. Mommy, I wish you many more years, many more great-grandchildren to keep the complex tradition alive.
The penultimate speaker is Mommy's greatest admirer.
It's me.
How many people, Mickey, know what penultimate is?
Not a mask. Mommy will know the answer.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here in the
My dear American friends,
Whoops, wrong paper.
it is indeed a great honor, privilege, and great pleasure to welcome you all to this 43rd charity dinner. Have I taken the wrong speech? I was just trying to find out if you listened. My dear children and friends, in all my speeches I look for tachlis. Generally it's financial, stressing, tzedakah, chesed, hakarat tova, etc. On my wife's 85th birthday party, I want to stress that you should always keep her in front of your eyes as an example par excellence to emulate. because to find another example like her, you have to go all the way back thousands of years to Miriam Hanevia, who was a tzedekes like the Miriam we are lucky to have here with us. I look at the similarity of character traits. Miriam, already as a young girl, was an advisor to her parents and Pharaoh's daughter. Like our Miriam, always ready to solve everybody's problems with advice. You know the Midrash that Miriam advised her parents to remarry so as not to be more cruel than Pharaoh, who only wanted to kill the boys. And then advised Pharaoh's daughter to get a Jewish wet nurse for her brother, so that the future savior of the Jewish people should drink his Jewish mother's milk and not get his first education. Like our Miriam, inspired with her deep religious conviction, so the Miriam of old was the inspiration for all. At a crucial moment after crossing the Red Sea, she was leading in song and praise for God. Do you know that Miriam's son, comes later. Miriam got in trouble with leprosy because she had pity, compassion with her sister-in-law Zipporah, and wanted her to have a normal life. Like our Miriam, she is always going on a limb for her and even her brothers and husband's relatives. Like our Miriam is loved by everybody who is lucky to know her, so Miriam was shown to be loved by the whole Machne Israel, who didn't want to budge on their journey to the Holy Land for 7 days, but waited for her to come along. Miriam may have been the first woman's lip lady when she took the law into her own hands and circumcised her son. Our Miriam, too, almost daily goes to Shiurim, studies the law, and learns the Talmud like any yeshiva goer. Not only the Jewish people, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu too appreciates and rewarded Miriam during 40 years of wandering in the desert. Miriam's well accompanied the Jewish people, satisfies their thirst, and was the cause of their blessing. Our Miriam too is the cause of her husband's blessing. Ein bracha מצויה בתוך ביתו של אדם, אלו בשביל אשתו. And I'm sure also